Good morning, scholars. Today we're going to continue our way through Pharr's Homeric Greek, looking at indirect questions. Now, indirect questions are introduced by interrogative pronouns, adjectives, and adverbs, and indefinite relative pronouns and adverbs, or by certain interrogative particles. Now, much of this lecture will be looking at these various elements that introduce indirect questions. So to begin, πότερον A, indirect alternative questions. He asked whether he wanted to go to Chicago or to Boston. Indirect alternative questions are introduced by the particles signifying whether or. So you have πότερον, πότερα, A, eta, eta, a, or a, eta. So as our example of πότερον A, we have di erota ton chiron, πότερον, bouloito, menein, a, apienai. She asked Cyrus whether he wanted to stay or go away. Di erota ton chiron, πότερον, bouloito, menein, a, apienai. So indirect questions can be, the simple indirect questions are introduced by a, rather, but less often by the interrogative particle ara. Note the circumflex ara. Homer also has ein, eike, and eike, with the subjunctive after verbs of knowing, seeing, and saying. So in our upcoming passage, Achilles is going to propose, let us call some priest or seer, hoske epoi, hote, etar, and I can pos. So his speech is going to contain these three different indirect questions. Let us call some priest or seer, hoske epoi, who can say, hote, why ever, and then etar, whether, and then eike post, whether or if perhaps. So we will be looking at, in a systematic way, these various introductory particles. So this brings us to two of the four most important charts you have in Smythe. And we're going to start with the chart of correlative pronouns at Smythe 340. And we will, I'm looking at the whole chart here, but we will look at it piecemeal because it's kind of hard to see as a full chart. But what's important to realize is that you have 5 different correlated elements here. You have the interrogative, direct or indirect. You have the indefinite, enclitic. You have the demonstrative. And you have the relative specific or exclamatory. And then you have the indefinite relative or indirect interrogative. So we're concerned today only with the first and the last categories. That is the direct, the interrogative, direct or indirect, and then the indefinite interrogative or indirect interrogative. And so you'll see, if we look at this, we'll see these more closely in piecemeal fashion. So beginning with the first 2 columns, the correlative pronouns of identity. Tis is who, and in the neuter it can be te, which, what, and it's equivalent to Latin qui. But then in the last column, the indefinite relative or indirect interrogative, hostis, whoever, anyone who. So tis, hostis, you get the aspirated omicron with the sigma thrown in here for, actually it's the sigma from the relative, but let's not complicate matters because you'll see in the rest of them it is just the aspirated omicron. So in the second row, πότερος, which of two, πότερος, whereas the indefinite ho πότερος, whichever of two. And then next we have of quantity and quality. So pόsos, how much, if I was asking how much money you have, πόσον χρήματα, how much money, pόsos, but then the indefinite relative, hopposos, hopposos. And then of quality, poios, but then indefinite, hopoios. So of what sort? Of whatever sort. And then age, pelikos, how old, how large, but hopelikos, of whatever age or size. So those are our correlative pronouns. Then we move to have a like chart at 346 of the correlative adverbs, and we'll look at these two piecemeal. So beginning with those of place, we have asking the questions where, whence, i.e. from where, and whither, to where, που, πότερον, and poi, που, πότερον, and poi, and then their indefinite forms, hopou, hopoten, and hopoi. And then of time and way, we have when, at what time, and which way, how, pote, penika, and pe, then hopote, hopenika, and hope. So interrogative forms of these that are direct can be either direct or indirect, and then we have the indirect interrogatives. And then finally, of manner, pos, hopos, how, however, or how in the world. And so you end up with this rather, this is a difficult chart because they all kind of like look the same. If you haven't been reading Greek for a long time, they all look the same, and when you encounter them in text, you'd wonder which ones you're dealing with. And this is why I say these two charts are so important, because you have to visit them again and again to get clear and distinct ideas of these various direct and indirect adverbs and pronouns. So you have που, hopou, poten, hopoten, poi, hopoi, pote, hopote, penika, hopenika, pe, hope, pos, hopos. And then for the pronouns, tis, hostis, poteros, hopoteros, posos, hoposos, poios, hopoios, pelikos, hopelikos. So it takes some getting used to these and cutting out, enlarging, and then pasting on your wall these two charts at 340 and 346 will go a long way once you actually start working through real Greek. So you'll find that the rule is a weird rule. It's almost not a rule at all, in that you can use anyone to do anything. But the use at 2665, Smythe explains that the use of the direct interrogatives in indirect questions is a relic of the original juxtaposition of expressions like epimoi, say to me, poion te nomizdes eusebeian enai, poion te nomizdes eusebeian enai. Tell me, what sort of thing do you think holiness is? So this poion is the direct use, but it gets used in an indirect question likewise. So he says, the interrogative force of the indefinite relatives is derived not from any interrogative idea in these words, but from the connection in which they stand. Okay, that's another one of his fine slicings. But, this is just what you have to get used to. These general senses of quantity, quality, number, age, place, time, whatever. that affix to these various relatives and interrogatives. Okay, so how about the moods and tenses in indirect questions? 2677. The moods and tenses of indirect questions follow the same rules as govern clauses of indirect discourse. The person may be changed. So what we'll see is that after primary tenses, the mood and tense of the direct question is retained. These are retained. So that's pretty straightforward. But after secondary tenses, you have a choice. After secondary tenses, the mood and tense of the direct form may be retained or the optative may be used. And the latter is more common. So if we look at this example, Polakis escope ti diapere manias amatia, from Xenophon's Memorabilia. He, that is Socrates, often considered in what respect ignorance differed from madness. He often considered in what respect ignorance differed from madness. So escope is an imperfect. That throws us in the secondary sequence. But we see that the diapere, the present of the original question, is retained. And there's no switch into the optative. Whereas in our next examples, we'll see that the optative, you switch to the optative for the indirect question. So the direct form here, tenes este, who are you, becomes eroton autus tenes ean. They asked them who they were. Okay, and then poson ekes, how much do you have? The direct question becomes erota auton poson crucion ekoi. The present becomes an optative. The indicative becomes an optative. He asked him how much money he had. So this is your possibility, just this shift to the optative after a secondary verb, tense verb introducing the indirect question. Okay, so you also have introducing indirect questions, and this we see in our passage, a or aeon, meaning on the chance that. So aeon, on the chance that. A or aeon may set forth the motive for an action or feeling expressed by the apodosis, and with the force of, on the chance that, in case that, in the hope that, if haply. So here we have, we will see Achilles saying, let us call some priest or seer, hos kepoi, who can say, hote toson ekosato poi bosapolon. Why in the world, why ever, poi bosapolon is so very angry. Etar, and rather, ho geukoles epimempetai et hecatombes, and whether by chance he blames some prayer or sacrifice offering, i.e. the lack thereof, I can post, and if perhaps antiasas, meaning with the fat of lambs or complete goats, he will remove from us the plague. I can post. So we have these three indirect questions. Why he's so angry, whether by chance he faults some sacrifice, and if by chance he would be willing to remove the plague. And this bulatai is what they call a short vowel subjunctive that you see in Homer, whereas in Attic this epsilon would be an eta. This is just the short vowel subjunctives that occur in Homer. Okay, so as far as the use of indirect relatives are concerned, the interrogatives of the direct question may be retained in indirect questions, but it is far more common to use the indefinite relatives, which in interrogative sentences are employed only in indirect questions. So here we have these direct questions, τι εστιν, τι este, what is it? And in an indirect form, eroton hote este to pragma. What's up? Whereas he asked, what is the matter? Whatever is the issue or the situation, pragma. Or a second example, poi strateuomen. Where are we marching? And then the indirect question, ede de udes, hopoi strateuse. No one knew wherever they were marching. But you notice the strateusen, it's still present. So it's kind of strange. We wouldn't do this in English. We'd have to change the verb of the indirect question. But Greek can say, no one knew where they're marching. Okay, so again, we're going to see in Iliad 62 through 67 these three forms of indirect question: hote kosato, and etar epemem petai, and I can pos buletai. And it's important to understand what's going on in each of these cases. Okay, so that's the matter of indirect questions, and I look forward to seeing you soon, and good luck. Continue to work hard. Okay, bye-bye.